Liverpool, should they win their game in hand. This doesn't seem consistent with the way in which we've talked about them up to this point in the season.
Because they've got very good players, and you have to say, with what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done, even when he's found that, since the Arsenal game when they lost, then obviously the Leipzig game, you was thinking that, well, what's going on here? But they've gone on an unbeaten run that has been pretty impressive. We're starting to see leadership in the dressing room, especially with Fernandes and the way you've seen him coaching and talking to the players. You see what they've got to come off the bench. The way that they are dismantling teams, Martial's form, Pogba coming off, Van der Beek coming off the bench. They've got, and he's done a lot of work for the players coming off the bench, Cavani. So it's working out, but like it's always going to be, the question with Man United is when the people do put in the low block and trying to break that. Once Man United work that out, because we've seen with Ole, I have to give him a lot of credit for the fact that he can find weaknesses in teams. But once he's able to then work out the low blocking teams and Man United break that down, they're going to cause a lot of problems because they've got brilliant players.
I suppose you kind of look back at that Manchester derby that was really hard to watch. It wasn't the most entertaining game. And think, do you know what, since then, the way that Manchester United have played, that now looks like a fairly sensible position for Man United to take in that game, approach to take to that game.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever had problems against the big teams. You know, they like to come out. I think the more disturbing was Pep, the way he went about that game with the two sitting midfield players. I thought that was unusual and it's something I didn't expect. But with Manchester United, their away form is incredible. I mean, away from home, they've been fantastic. So at home, I think why there's been a negative vibe about them is because the games they have, the points they have dropped at home against teams they should beat. Now, but the facts are there. If they would have won them games, they're top of the league now. You know, and in games we expected them to win early on in the season. But, I mean, Ollie is making all of us eat our words. I think that if I was in his position, I'd be smugly smiling there thinking, yeah, you say what you want, guys. Let's see how we are at the end of the season. But the facts are, Ollie, you need to challenge. Now, we spoke long and hard about Man United saying, well, they haven't got the players. And all around the world, people are saying, well, Ed Woodward needs to help them out. He needs to go into the transfer market. He needs to get better quality players there. But like I say, the facts are still there. They're going to be second in the league when they win that game in hand, and they are in position to challenge Liverpool for that title. Do I think they're as good as Liverpool? Will they get over the line with that consistency? No, I don't think they will. But I wouldn't have thought they'd be second in the league up to now. But you have to say, on the face of it, apart from dropping out PSG, knocking them out of the Champions League, he's done a good job there, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, it's certainly looking that way. And I wonder if inconsistency is not something that we can level at any team in particular this season, because every single team has had bad games this season and bad results this season.
It is true. And I think it's enough to have a decent run of 3 or 4 games to be suddenly in the second in the league because of the inconsistency below Liverpool at the moment. You'd still expect Manchester City to come back, for example. I would also expect Chelsea to be a little bit more advanced as they are at the moment. But it is true that I think Solskjaer has figured out a way to bring out the best of the good players he does have. And he has a lot of good players in the attacking positions. It is, I completely agree with you, it is a game that's constructed on the counter-attack, and it works best away from home, and it works best against teams that come at them. That's why their home record is pretty poor, their away record is pretty good, and they do well against those bigger sides. But my only issue is that I already thought at the beginning of the season that United were at that point, and then they lose 6-1 at home to Spurs, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And then they go into another good run, and then they get knocked out in the Champions League, and they're losing Başakşehir here, and they're losing Leipzig, and I'm thinking, what's going on? So I think the big picture is one of progress, but they still seem to have the capability of having the odd really bad game, which kind of knocks them off a little bit, and then they come back. So I think as a United supporter, you'd be reasonably pleased, but I think perhaps not 100% yet convinced that you're sort of going back to where you should be.
But if we're taking this picture kind of, you know, moving into this calendar year, and we're looking into even the start of next season, if they want to be challenging maybe even more seriously next season, is it about moving away from just being dependent on the success of their counter-attacking? Do they need to be able to dominate games in a different way?
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah. Because like when I watched them against Leeds, and it was brilliant from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the way that he knows that Leeds like to match you up. Like they like to put a man against a man, especially when Leeds haven't got the ball, and just see the intelligence. Bruno Fernandes taking Calvin Phillips out of the middle of the pitch. You know, then McTominay being able to take advantage, and you're seeing Martial bringing Ayling into a position where, you know, he can't help but go. So, you know, they work that out, and then you see people like Daniel James getting the benefits of that. We could see that they can work out that kind of situation and counter-attack as well. But like I said, when Man United then get hold of the ball and are able to break teams down, when they are doing that low block and sitting in, then Man United are going to cause teams a lot of problems. A lot of problems, because they've got really good offensive players and they've got very good midfield players who are very creative. So you just need to find out when Man United are able to then get that part of their game going and break teams down, they're going to cause teams problems.
I think that comes with personnel, though, Kelly. I don't think he can teach that. I don't think he can teach Greenwood to play. I mean, he can always develop, or Rashford to play in the pocket and drop his shoulder and find a cute pass. Fernandes got that automatically. Fernandes can counter-attack, and he also can play in tight areas. They need more players who can play it. That's why I was so surprised when they were going for Jadon Sancho. Like, if they could buy it, and the old Man United would bought Jadon Sancho, Jack Grealish, and a few others. More. They can't do that now. They have to pick their target. So I thought Grealish was far more suited to what they need, someone who can play in the tight areas and find that cute pass and play with Fernandes. They went to Van der Beek. Now, I think Van der Beek will still be the answer. I just think he needs a run of games. It's hard to drop him in and keep bringing him out and bring him off the bench, giving him 20 minutes here or there. The boy needs to play with confidence and he needs to have a rhythm. I think he can see that pass. But I think to teach the team to play that way, certain players have got certain characteristics, and the most characteristic they've got is to play on the counter-attack with the pace in behind, with Greenwood, Rashford, and Martial in behind. I think Cavani's given another dimension. I think they can now cross the ball into the box a lot more, and he's got great movement he can get on the end of it. And I think Wrighty makes a great point. The Leeds game was really, I admired Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for that, because he spotted there's a 1v1 on the pitch. Who thought that McTominay could do that? Yeah. We always thought that McTominay was that six, the sitting midfield player. It was either him, Matic, or Fred. But it's not. He's got legs, he's got energy, he's got 1v1, he can dribble forward, he picks his runs forward, and he showed us the whole repertoire there in that game against Leeds.
McSauce, that's what they call it.
McSauce, right. McSauce.
Just to digress slightly, just because you mentioned Jack Grealish, because it feels as though there's a few whispers about him again. Are we thinking January or planning for the summer?
I think he'd be a lot more money, though, Kels, now, wouldn't he? You know, he was 70 million in January. They already done a deal at 40 million, and then Villa stayed in the league, so they couldn't get it over the line because it was a lot more money. But now I think Villa are in a position where if Jack wants to leave the club, they're progressing. They're going on an upward spiral anyway, Aston Villa. But if they wanted to sell him now, I think they were looking at 100 million.
It's crazy. You know? It'd be crazy, Tim. It'd be absolutely crazy for Villa to sell him now. They don't need to. I believe that the last contract he signed was one to then secure Villa's bag in respects of what they're going to get for him at some stage, because it's going to be a lot of money. But I don't think that is no way happening in January. But you could see Jack Grealish doing an unbelievable job at Man United. You could see that. Yeah. It's something that could happen in the future.
Do you think Sancho would be a player they still go for?
I'm not sure. But like when you're talking about Jadon Sancho as a talent and ability, then if you can put that in your armory, that you have to do it. If he comes to England and plays, seeing him do for Dortmund, then he's going to be a massive star here. So if Man United can get that player, and it's the player that Man United should be going for. Whether they're going for him at a time they may need to get in someone else, it's a whole different story. But of course, if Man United can get Jadon Sancho, they should.
Go for someone else in terms of Jack Grealish, or going someone else in terms of strengthening their defence? Because is that maybe not the first port of call for Manchester United? Well, the first port of call,
this is what I mean with Jadon Sancho. He's somebody that you can see at a club of Manchester United's stature. But do they need him before they need maybe defensive cover in and around the centre halves? No, you probably think that they could strengthen there. But I think that as time goes by, Jadon Sancho is somebody that will do magnificently at Man United.
Yeah. Does it have to be Sancho and a defender, or is it just about timing in the transfer market?
It's always about timing. I mean, in the summer, I think United made a decision to say, we've spent a lot of money on defenders. Let's see if we can add a bit of quality and a bit of creativity, and that's why Sancho was such a big target. And I think Van der Beek was probably more of a backup option, even though he's a completely different player. and much more of a sort of a number 10 or shadow striker playing in small areas, as you said. I think that Sancho will still be attractive to United because they're a team that historically would define themselves through wingers, through people who get the ball and do something exciting on the wings, and they don't really have that play at the moment. Martial sometimes plays there, but he's really more of a striker. Maybe you get a bit of action from the fullbacks at times, but you don't have a real number 7 at the moment. I think they see Sancho as somebody who can grow into that position, and I think that's why the appeal is still there.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the centre right now, you have to say that Lindelof and Maguire have had a pretty decent run. I mean, when you look at United's problems, if you were, you wouldn't necessarily point at the back four right now. So I can understand why, if you have to pick your targets, and if it's either 120 million euros on a striker or on a winger or on another centre back, then you'd probably more likely to go and strengthen, I think, in creative areas.
Yeah, and like you said, with regards to Liverpool, if you have that much talent up front who press, then you don't necessarily need to be rock solid and concrete at the back. They're going to be facing Leicester. We're talking about Manchester United potentially winning and going to within 2 points of Liverpool. They could go into second place if they get the result against Leicester, who've looked decent, but then they start seasons well. It's whether they can sustain it.
Yeah, and you look at the injuries that they had. They ran out of steam last season, and you like to think that the injuries they've had, certain players who will be coming back now, the Amates and Pereira and people like this, Soyuncu, Maddison's not long come back. So you're feeling like as the season goes on, they probably will get better because they'll have players that will be fresher. You look at and you look at Vardy and what Vardy's doing. I read something the other day that he's averaging 12 touches, 12 touches in a game, and his assists are only behind Harry Kane and De Bruyne and Jack Grealish. So the efficiency in which he's working at the minute is unbelievable.
How many did you have?
What, assists?
No, touches.
Touches. The thing is, if I could have that least amount of touches and score and play as well as he's playing, I'll be quite happy with that because he's so efficient with his finishing, and he's getting to that age where he's so clever about the way he's playing his game and the way he's creating for the rest of the team, that they're always going to have that kind of danger and that potency, but they're going to have to worry about what they're going to do about replacing that, because yes, they've got fantastic midfield players, they've got great defenders, and like James Justin, he's played literally every minute so far. When they change it, they could change it to the 4, he could play in the 3, he could play on the left wing back. They've got so much going for them that you find all of a sudden they just lose, and you think, well, where's that come from when they are playing so well? But there's still a little bit of, I don't know, uncertainty in them where you can get at them. But in the main, it's one of the teams I wouldn't want to play against too often.
Yeah, certainly for this game as well, because they sit back, don't they? Brendan likes to counter-attack. He wants his fullbacks to pretty much stay where they are. They got Ndidi back in. I think he's given them an injection of energy, which they've been missing in that midfield area, to supplement Tillemans and Dennis Pratt. Listen, Maddison's come back to life because I think they've got that energy in the midfield area. And if their fullbacks, Man United's fullbacks, leave them pockets, right is right. But Vardy will just be spinning in there and he'll be hurting them and stretching them down the sides. And when he stretches them, he takes them back, and Maddison then picks up that space and then makes them play. But Brendan has always got a surprise up his sleeve. He is fantastic at getting the team set up. Might be the most great to watch, possibly, but it's effective. Done a job on Tottenham. Tottenham are flying high. They go there. Their results away from home have been fantastic. They did it at the Emirates and went to the Etihad and done it. Listen, it will be a dodgy game. It's a real tricky game for Manchester United. But I think that Man United now hitting such form, consistency, I think they have the upper hand because they've got the better players. And I agree with Righty. I think he's done a brilliant job to fall out of the top 4 the last game of last season, and to start again and continue to win with this injury-ravaged squad. I think he's done an absolutely top job.
Yeah. Do we think that they're strong challenges to finish in the top 4 this season? I mean, you look at that game. If they do get the result against Manchester United, it's Crystal Palace and Newcastle up next. You feel like they could really consolidate something over this?
I think they have a chance because, with the exception of Liverpool, you get the sense that none of the teams are playing anywhere near their real capacity. Maybe they played 70%, maybe 80%. With Leicester, you get a sense maybe they are playing at 90%. There's not that much they can still get out, but that's actually a compliment because he's getting so much out of the squad, even though they have injuries. And the system works, even when they sometimes play with 3 at the back, then they can stretch teams on the wings even a bit more in possession, even though the counter-attack is the best system with Vardy on the shoulder. And before the start of the season, no one saw them as part of the big 6. But the way things are going, they could easily be part of the big 4. And I think we have to give them a lot of credit. And they seem to be able to cope with the situation a little bit better than perhaps some of the teams involved in Europe. And I think that's another thing that's working for them at the moment.
Yeah, we will continue to talk about that because we're going to take a look at some of the teams that are challenging for those top 4 places and for those top 6 places as well as we cast.
Thank you.